Noah McLeod felt the ice groan beneath his boots as he drilled through the late January crust on Great Slave Lake. The temperature was 40 below without the wind, and the world was reduced to 3 colors: slate sky, endless white, and the blue parka wrapped around his own shoulders. Years of northern winters had taught him to keep his mind still while his hands worked. There was something soothing about the metronome of auger teeth and shavings of ice curling upward. Yet even that rhythm faltered when his line jerked after only a minute in the water. He expected a lake trout, or at least a rogue burbot, but the weight felt wrong, too light, too unpredictable. When he hauled up the hand line, a green wine bottle surfaced, cap crusted with miniature stalactites. Its sides were scuffed, the way river flotsam gets scuffed. But this far inland, there was no river to do the scuffing. He scraped the ice away from the neck, prized out the cork with a multi-tool, and let a rolled paper fall into his mitten. Noah McLeod Personal. Open immediately. The handwriting was his own. He looked around at the empty lake. Other shacks dotted the horizon, but no one was near enough to pull a prank. The letter was dated as precisely as any invoice 10 February, 10 days ahead of today's 31 January. Beside the date was a sketched snowflake and a tiny drawing of a flame, as if whoever wrote it had been in too much of a hurry to explain with words. He broke the seal of ice on his shack door, ducked inside, flipped the propane heater on low, and unrolled the note under lamplight. Noah, when you read this, you have 9 days left. A blizzard will lock you, Elise, Jonah, and Ryan in the trapper cabin. The stove will go out at 2:17. When it does, Elise will be stabbed once in the back. You must keep the lantern lit and remember the ice auger key. Trust nobody who brings coffee. Bury the bottle where you found it after you decide. I'm sorry I can't say more. Some things have to stay blurry, or the future snaps. Noah read it twice, then a third time, searching for the wrongness. The phrases sounded like his own shorthand. The precise minute, the practical warning, the dark humor. He should have laughed. Should have guessed one of his buddies had traced his handwriting from a birthday card and cooked up a joke. But he knew how much isolation and darkness it took to slip into that particular cadence. It was genuine, horrifyingly so. He folded the note, slid it into an inside pocket, and stared at the hole in the ice. Snowflakes drifted downward, melting before they touched the water, each one a reminder that the bottle shouldn't have risen through 20 inches of solid lake. It had to come from below, had to have waited there. The wind picked up, rattling the shack walls. He pulled up his line, packed his sled, and drove the snowmobile toward town. The words, "Trust nobody who brings coffee," thumping to the rhythm of the engine. Hay River in winter is a study in scarcity. One grocery, one gas station, one cafe that remained open mostly because nothing else could compete with the smell of cinnamon buns on a freezing morning. Noah pushed through the cafe door and found his sister Elise in her paramedic uniform, hands wrapped around a paper cup that steamed like a chimney. "Still making friends with fish?" she asked. He tried to answer, but the note pulsed against his rib cage. He managed to nod and sat. "You look like somebody died," she said. "Not yet," he murmured before he could stop himself. She raised an eyebrow. "You know you're weird, right? Comes with the territory." He almost told her. But if the letter was true, saying too much might lock the future in place. Some things have to stay blurry or the future snaps. He changed the subject. "Jonah said he's coming up next week?" "Yeah, for Ryan's send-off party at the cabin." "You're still hosting?" He forced a smile. Jonah Chaudhry, RCMP constable, fly-in pilot, Noah's oldest friend, had agreed to take 5 days off. Ryan, Elise's former boyfriend, had apparently patched things up enough to want a final ice fishing binge before moving south for a mining job. Noah himself had offered their late father's trapper cabin, 30 kilometers up the shoreline as neutral ground. He remembered the bottle's litany, Elise, Jonah, and Ryan, all of them under one roof in a storm, a murder. Change of plans, he said, surprising himself. Maybe we stay in town. Cold snap coming. Elise rolled her eyes. Afraid the big bad winter's going to bite? He pictured her prone on the cabin floor, blood melting into pine boards. He swallowed. Just a hunch. Your hunches put me through paramedic school, she conceded, patting his arm. But Ryan's already bragged about this trip. Maybe we bring the satellite phone and extra fuel and trust the weather report. Noah wanted to forbid it, but caution tasted suddenly like cowardice. The letter existed, that was fact. The rest, murder, was probability, and he hadn't yet tested that probability. Perhaps showing up prepared would bend the line. Fine, he relented. But we double supplies, and nobody touches the lantern except me, she laughed, thinking he was joking. The cabin sat on a rocky promontory overlooking the vast whiteness of the lake. Their father had built it after leaving the military, so everything was redundantly sturdy. Sandbag foundation, storm shutters, cast iron stove that could melt rail spikes. Still, Noah surveyed the place like a crime scene in advance. He replaced the lantern wick, sharpened the axe, tucked flare guns above door frames. In the shed he found the ice auger key the letter mentioned and slipped it into his jeans. The others arrived at dusk on 9 February. Jonah piloted the Twin Otter ski plane onto the lake, taxiing up to the shoreline while Ryan and Elise rode snowmobiles. The evening felt almost festive. Jonah brought moose steaks, Ryan lugged in a case of beer, Elise produced playing cards and a fistful of sparklers. When Ryan handed Noah a thermos of coffee in thanks for hosting, Noah's throat closed. Trust nobody who brings coffee. Later, Noah said, stashing the thermos behind canned goods as if it were radioactive. Outside, the horizon flickered green with aurora, serene and indifferent to human anxieties. If there was a blizzard coming, the sky hid it well. They grilled, they laughed, they argued politics, door. At midnight they played euchre by lantern glow. Noah avoided caffeine, and when sleep finally dragged him under, the lantern still burned steady on the shelf. 10 February dawned calm, whisper cold. Jonah and Ryan went to cut fishing holes, while Elise inventoried medical kits. Noah stayed behind to check the aviation radio for weather. Static greeted him, then a curt voice from Fort Smith reporting a rapidly deepening low, barling from the Arctic Ocean blizzard warnings for the entire Northwest Territories by nightfall. His pulse sped. The letter had nailed the date and the storm, which made the murder feel less avoidable. He told the others, suggested they load up and evac while visibility remained. Ryan cracked the first beer of the day. We've seen worse. Cabin stocked. Quit flinching. Jonah, usually cautious, sided with Ryan. Planes tied down. Whiteout takeoffs are suicide. Staying put is safer. Elise watched Noah, her brother's tension unsettling her confidence for the first time. Let's just be smart. We'll batten down. Worst case, we burn furniture. By afternoon, the wind was already howling. Snow slammed the shutters like thrown gravel. At dusk, the world outside vanished, a swirling opacity that erased distance and direction. The cabin's walls popped as temperature and pressure shifted. The four of them huddled near the stove, lantern burning bright. Ryan brewed coffee on a butane camp burner, its blue flame defiant. He poured mugs, handing one to each person. Noah lifted his gingerly. Where'd you get grounds? I don't keep them here. Brought my own, Ryan said. City boy doesn't run on water. Trust nobody who brings coffee. Noah pretended to sip, the bitter steam clinging to his nostrils. He watched the other two swallow gulps. Minutes later, Jonah yawned. Elise rubbed her forehead, blinking slow. Feel weird, she muttered. Ryan set his mug down, eyes bright. Altitude sickness? Heck of a time for that. Jonah slumped forward on the bench, unconscious before his head hit the table. Elise collapsed sideways. Noah rose, heart battering, as Ryan produced a folding knife from his coat. You drugged them, Noah said, voice flat with disbelief and rage. Ryan shrugged. Easier than arguing. Outside the blizzard screamed. The lantern hissed, throwing gold ripples across log walls. Ryan advanced. Move, and I'll gut you like a pike, MacLeod. A part of Noah, cold and detached, noticed fingerprints on the blade. Ryan hadn't worn gloves. Stupid mistake for a premeditated killer. The rest of him calculated distance to the stove poker. What you want? Noah asked, stalling. Ryan's grin cracked like ice under pressure. I'm not leaving the North empty-handed. Jonah flew up with payroll envelopes from headquarters. 6 figures in cash for remote detachments. Easy to pocket during a storm. Elise was going to say something. Can't have that. You'd kill her? She dumped me. Loyalty's dead. Why not her? Noah edged toward the poker. And me? Accidents happen. Cabin fire, maybe. Ryan flicked his wrist. The blade glinted. Noah snatched the poker and swung. Steel rang on steel as knife met iron, sparks snapping. Ryan ducked, slashed. The poker clanged against the stove. The lantern shuddered on its hook. In that instant, Noah remembered the note. When the stove goes out, Elise will be stabbed. Ryan lunged again, and Noah deflected, but momentum carried Ryan into the stove. The door burst open, a log rolled, ashes puffing. Draft whistled through and the flame choked, faltered, died. 217, he thought. Ryan pivoted toward the unconscious Elise. Noah jammed the poker between man and sister. The lantern's light showed Ryan's pupils pinprick. Feral. Knife arced downward. Noah intercepted, feeling steel bite his mitten but not flesh. He twisted. The blade skittered across floorboards, landing near Jonah's boots. Ryan tackled him, both crashing against the lantern shelf. Glass shattered. Kerosene flared on wood. Noah shoved Ryan into the growing fire, scrambled to grab the knife first. Pain seared his palm around the handle, but he turned while Ryan clawed burning accelerant off his parka. The air filled with smoke. Noah drove the blade once, low into Ryan's thigh, severing intent if not artery. Ryan screamed, tried to stand, slipped on kerosene, hit the floor hard. Noah rolled Jonah onto his side, slapped his face. Wake up! Cabin's on fire! Jonah groaned, semi-coherent. Noah dragged him to the door, kicked it open. Snow cycloned inside, shock cool and blinding. He hauled Jonah onto the porch drift, returned for Elise. Ryan was crawling toward her, one hand smearing blood, the other reaching for the blade still in Noah's grip. Noah hurled a cast-iron skillet at Ryan's head. The thunk was decisive. Ryan went limp. He slung Elise over his shoulder, emerging into the screaming white. The plane was useless. The shed offered no protection. That left a half-buried emergency tent, bright orange, near the tree line. He wrestled zippers, shoved siblings inside, packed snow against flapping fabric to seal warmth. Back in the cabin doorway, flames blossomed with greedy speed. Ryan lay conscious now, bleeding and sooty, staring at Noah. "Help," he croaked. "Even monsters fear burning." Noah knelt, cuffed Ryan with Jonah's spare zip ties, and dragged him outside. Pure survival instinct forced cooperation. They both stomped snow onto Ryan's smoldering coat until the fire hissed out. Minutes later, the cabin roof collapsed, sending sparks twirling into night. The blizzard devoured them instantly. Noah, shivering, realized the lantern lay shattered inside. The only heat was their collective breath swirling in headlamps' beams. He staggered to the emergency tent, crawled between unconscious bodies, and zipped them all into a cocoon of trembling flesh and synthetic insulation. For hours the storm raved. Noah fought sleep, thinking of the letter, how much had come true, how much he had bent. Elise wasn't stabbed, but Ryan was injured. The stove went out, the cabin burned, but everyone remained alive. He'd blurred the future, maybe enough. Sometime near dawn, the wind eased. Jonah stirred, head pounding. Elise moaned, the sedative wearing off. Noah explained in jagged whispers while Ryan lay hogtied, glaring. By noon, an RCMP helicopter thundered overhead, dispatched after Jonah failed to radio in. Rescuers winched them up as the fire-blackened cabin smoldered below a sky scrubbed clean and blue. A week later, after statements were filed and Ryan was shipped to Yellowknife in handcuffs, Noah walked alone onto the ice where he'd found the bottle. The hole had frozen over, but a dark circle marked the spot beneath fresh powder. He knelt, chipping carefully until water glinted. He held the original letter, now laminated in a plastic sleeve, and a pen. He wrote, "Letter received. Blizzard happened. Cabin gone, but we're alive. Murder prevented. Lantern broke. Auger key irrelevant different path. If future still unstable, send guidance. If stable, let the lake keep our secret. N17 Feb." He rolled the page, sealed it in the same green bottle, and considered the physics or metaphysics of what came next. The first bottle had travelled upstream in time by sitting underwater, frozen in place until he hauled it out. Maybe cold was a conduit, the way copper conducted electrons. Maybe the lake knew things men could only guess. He slid the bottle into the hole. It bobbed once, then water accepted it, pulling it under like a stuck breath. Snowflakes drifted across, erasing everything within seconds. Noah exhaled, feeling the timeline thrum around him, newly ambiguous, like fresh ice that might crack or might hold forever. Spring found him rebuilding a smaller cabin with salvaged logs. Jonah helped on weekends. Elise, cast still on her sprained wrist, insisted on hammering nails one-handed. They laughed more easily now, the tragedy averted, having stitched them tighter. One evening, after birds returned and ice retreated from shore, Noah waded ankle-deep to net floating debris. Among the tangled driftwood was a bottle scarred by winter. It clinked against his boot. His heart lurched. He set it on shore, almost afraid to look. But curiosity, that old northern virtue, won. He uncorked the bottle and tilted the note into the soft spring light. "Noah? Wind blows one way, water another. You can't rebuild forever. The ice will fail again 22 December. Keep Elise south of 60. Keep the lantern lit anyway. Some fires die hard. All debts paid after that, I hope." Then, he smiled, equal parts dread and wonder. Time, it seemed, was as restless as the lake, but he had 10 months' warning and a family beside him. That would have to be enough. He folded the letter, pockets bulging with possibility, and watched the sunset bleed across thorn water, thinking that some messages are never finished. They are simply reeled in, read, and cast back, each casting a choice,